Hi everyone, it's Zoe or Spooky Zoe again. We are gonna go through another booktube video. We are going to look at some of the books that I read in January, or all of the books we read in January, I should say. And then we're gonna get into what I'm looking forward to in February. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, first things first, I did a January Pages challenge with Storygraph. I use Storygraph mainly for most of my stuff. I'm also on Fable, but we'll get into that in a little bit throughout the story, or throughout the video, I should say. So, January Pages challenge is basically just when Storygraph challenges you to either read a page from a book every single day or to listen to a minute of your audiobook every single day. And I did that, and this is my little chart down here. I read a lot more in January than I thought I was going to. We'll get into that in a second. But yeah, I did a lot of stuff. Orange is my audiobooks. Green is my pages. Some days I've read like almost 200 pages, which is insane because I have not done that in forever. But yeah, it was great. But then I'm gonna get into my stats. So, for my stats, basically what happened was I read 8 books, 1,159 pages, and 33.5 hours. Average time to finish was about 6 days, so not really too bad. For my moods, Storygraph lets you categorize things into moods. So I had a lot of funny, emotional, reflective, and dark, and adventurous books, and then a couple were tense, mysterious, lighthearted, informative, and hopeful. Kind of a good mix for January. I didn't want it to be all doom and gloom, but I also didn't want it to be all like funny ha-has. We got into pace. 2 of the books that I read were fast. 6 of them that I read were medium. Not too uncommon for me. I like to read a lot of romance books. So those are typically my faster books, and my medium-paced books are usually like fantasy or things like that. Page numbers, I kind of stuck to below 300 this month. I didn't really have any big chunky books that I was trying to get through. A lot of them were kind of short, which is another reason why I was doing my page numbers. Audiobook length, also not really untypical, or atypical, I should say, for me. Usually between 8 and 16 hours for what I read. For fiction and nonfiction, I read 1 fiction book this month. I was really proud of myself, and then 7 of them were fiction. Now let's get into the details about the genres. So, being a queer person, I read a lot of queer fiction, and a lot of queer nonfiction, kind of. Basically, what happens is I don't really like reading straight romance anymore. It just gets really boring to me. I like the queer ones much more, so I tend to read a lot more queer books. I also read a lot of contemporary, and this month I jumped into graphic novels. Did a little bit of horror, a little bit of romance to balance it out, and then just a little slew of like fantasy, historical, comics, literary, memoir, mystery, science fiction, thriller, young adult, feminism, dystopian, gender. A lot of different things that I read in January. A lot of different things. The only tags that I was keeping up with this month were Libby tags. I like to tag the books that I get with Libby to see how many of my total books of the year did I grab from Libby. Last year, like I think 65 or 70% of the books that I read were from Libby, and last year was my first year using Libby, so I was really happy with that. Because it showed that like I'm spending a lot of time in supporting my local libraries, which you should do too. Go get a library card. It means a lot. You need to fund your libraries. For format, I usually never read a lot of physical books or a lot of like digital books. However, I did this month, which is insane. Only 3 of my books were audiobooks. The rest were either digital or print, which is insane. I usually don't read a lot like that. So it was kind of like crazy I was reading this much, but part of it, as we'll get into, big snowstorm, locked in the house for like multiple days in a row. What was I supposed to do? Everything was in English. I want to possibly this year read some books in Spanish or something like that because I do know a little bit of Spanish, but we'll see what happens with that. Star ratings, 8 reviews, average rating 4.06. I had 2 that were 3.5, 4 that were 4s, 1 that was a 4.5, and 1 that was a 5-star. And then this is just my little graphic for the month of all my pages and minutes I read. Again, orange is my minutes listened, and pages is in green. Before we get to that, though, I want to look at my reading calendar. Storygraph has a lot of really good stats and graphics that I absolutely love, which is why I keep using them. But I started out my year with Crescent Moon Tea Room. Never ended up finishing that because I read so many other books. But I did read a little bit every single day, and then I read a little bit on the 23rd. Didn't really get to more of that. But I like this because it shows how many pages you read every day and how many minutes you listened every single day. I finished Someone You Can Build a Nest In first, then Woman's World, then Wash Day, then Genderqueer, then Resurrectionist. Then I finished it off, or listened to Navigating to You, and then Curvy Girl Summer, and then we get into Tender as the Flesh. But finished all these books, why not start at looking at my actual reviews? So, first book I read was Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell, narrated by Carmen Rose. I read this because it was tagged as a fiction, fantasy, horror, queer romance. And I don't know about you, but I've never seen a book be all of that at one time, and this book did it fantastically. Basically, what the story's about is there's a big monster, that basically has fallen in love. She's a shapeshifter. She falls in love with this human and decides to shapeshift over some bones in order to go on this human and live a life with her. It was a queer romance, sapphic romance. Really liked it. Absolutely enjoyed it. Was not expecting to love it as much as I did, but I gave it 4.5 stars. Absolutely loved it. It was interesting to see, like, the contrast of, like, the horror and fantasy right beside each other and then lump in a queer romance as well. It seems like it's a lot to do in a book, but this book did it really well. I really liked the storytelling of it. I really liked, like, everything surrounding it. If we look at my review, you see 4.5 stars, adventurous, dark, funny, medium paced, great character development, great diverse cast of characters, lovable characters. The flaws of the main characters remain focused because they were like, if you're a monster, what the hell are you doing here? A mix of plot or character driven. Loved it so much. Sapphic read, as I talked about before. Perfect way to start the new year. Content warnings though, because I am going to put content warnings in here. Graphic ones, body horror, emotional abuse, and gore. A little bit of a horror book, a little bit of a thriller, you're going to get that in there. Moderate, a little bit of animal cruelty, a little bit of physical abuse, death of a parent. There's, like, wars and stuff that are going on in this book, so kind of happens. Minor, we have excrement, vomit, and abandonment. Basically what happens is throughout the book you get a little bit of family trauma, monsters, fantasy, gore, etc. So you're gonna get some, like, creepy things or some gross things in there. I liked it. I thought it was really good, but some of you may like it, some of you may not. The next book that I read was Woman World by Adminder Dhaliwal, is what I'm thinking. Dhaliwal. This was published in 2018. I am dumb, and I never thought that I could get comics on Libby, and as soon as I found that out, you'll see, I think it's 4 of my books this month were Libby comics. But this was lighthearted. Basically, this book is about what if men just disappeared and stopped being born, and it was only women in the world, and how women would survive, how would we handle things, and so on and so forth. And I thought it was really kind of cool. I really liked the comic-y bits of it. The art style is really cute and simple. It has, like, a bunch of jokes that, like, you'll get and laugh at. And it's just, like, really, like, little itty-bitty snippets of, like, queer vibes, jokes, snappy pacing, and I really like it a lot. It, like, really shined through. And I did give it a 4 star just because I was laughing. I was giggling and reading this in bed before I went to bed the nights that I read it. I think this would be like 2 days, even though it was like 260 pages. Absolutely loved it. If we look at my review, I just talked about 4 stars. Love, strong character development, diverse cast characters, lovable characters. There wasn't really any flaw in anything for the characters, and it was a mix of character and plot driven, because, like, you can't really help that men aren't alive and that we're just kind of vibing with it. Although, for some content warnings, moderate mental illness, misogyny, sexual content, Little bit of minor blood, vomit, and medical content. Just kind of like the gynecologist and things like that, and just like how to survive in a post-apocalyptic world. Yada yada. The next book I read I absolutely loved. It was called Wash Day Diaries by Jamila Rouser, and narrated or illustrated by Robin Smith. This is only 192 pages, came out in 2022. This is about 4 women, Kim, Tanisha, Devine, and Cookie. They're basically just going through their lives in the Bronx, and taking care of their hair and the diverse backgrounds. I absolutely loved reading this because I love reading about how other people live in the world. Reading like diverse books is kind of like something I absolutely love to do, and it's how I experience other people's views other than the people I surround myself with. Only 5-star of the month. Absolutely love this. I read everything in one day. That is how much I love this book. But it was just great. It was just talking about being in your like 20s, celebrating yourself, living with people you love, and just kind of experiencing the world as someone in your mid 20s, taking care of things. But for my ratings, already said 5 stars. Emotional, funny, reflective, relaxing, very, very fast paced. Strong character development and diverse character cast, obviously. Lovable, obviously. Plot, it's kind of character driven because we're just following them through their lives, and it felt very much like I was watching a vlog. Like, you follow one person go visit her grandmother who is in a care facility. You go visit someone else who's talking to their ex. Someone else is trying to get together with somebody. Like, someone's in a band, someone's doing art. Like, it's all these bunch of different diverse backgrounds. It also talks about mental health a lot. But that being said, getting into the content warnings, you have graphic ones for mental illness, dementia, stalking, etc., moderate ones for drug use, sexual content, toxic relationships, and then minor for biphobia, racism, and sexual harassment. So I really like this a lot. I highly recommend you guys read it. It's great. It's amazing. Love it so much. But the next book I read was Genderqueer, a Memoir by Maya Kobabe and Phoebe Kobabe Illustrated. Basically, this follows Maya as they grow up from being a child into adult and what they experienced with gender and being queer and being gender nonconformative. And it was really nice to read it because as someone who is, oh, they read ear pronouns. My apologies. But they kind of go through their life, and it's insane. I really liked this book a lot. I thought the story was beautifully woven together about how being a child, being queer, not knowing what that means, and it's like amazing, and I loved it so much. If we get into the rating, I did 4 stars. Basically, I loved reading a book about a genderqueer and nonconforming author. I love the exploration of gender and sex and sexuality. As someone who's only been out for like 5 years, I love discovering new gender identities and feelings on being a queer person, and it really opened my eyes to like the multiple different ways people can express gender and feel gender, and I really loved it so much. But as we get to content warnings, just so you guys are aware of them, moderate one on dysphoria. We're talking about gender and doing different things with gender and gender fluctuating, yada yada. There's gonna be a little bit of dysphoria naturally with that. Minor blood, some medical trauma, again, like gynecologist stuff and things like that. If we get into the next book, this is The Resurrectionist by A. Ray Dunlap, narrated by Tom Kitely. This is set in 19th century, like 1880s, Gothic London, where we're talking about serial killers and being in medical school, and the main character, I forget his name. Oh, what is his name? James. Okay, James is the main character. I was like, what is this man's name? I forget this man's name. I love this book. James basically came from a family of wealth. He's tried all these careers, didn't really like them. So he is trying to get into medical school, and it talks about him going to medical school. And one thing happens where his father dies, and they find out his father was in a lot of debt, and they have to sell a lot of things and take away a lot of money to pay off his debt. And basically what happens with that is all of a sudden James doesn't have a way to pay for medical school or to survive, and he's got to figure out what he does. And what he finds out is he can be a resurrectionist and a body snatcher and found himself being in Edinburgh going to medical school. I really like this. I love Dana Schwartz's book, Anatomy, a love story, and the second book that goes along with that, Immortality. I absolutely love it. And this is kind of reminding me of that, except it was from the perspective of a man. A little bit of queer story that was also thrown in here, a little bit of queer romance. Absolutely loved it. It was kind of like a subplot that was going in. Baby really loved this book more. 3.5 stars. I loved the medical detail, the intrigue, the queer themes. It felt like it was enhanced by a queer theme. I can't wait for the next Avery Dunlap. It has a lot of strong character development and lovable characters. Not really diverse cast of characters because we're talking about 1880s Edinburgh. Flaws of the character, main focus was complicated. I said complicated just kind of like the only flaws that are really brought up besides, the obvious being a resurrectionist, is not having money and being queer. That's really it. And I'm like, I don't think those are really flaws of characters. It's kind of just like happened to them. But plot's a little bit of a mix. There's some character driven, there's some plot driven parts of the book. But for content warnings, obviously, with it being a medical book in surgery, Edinburgh, 1880s, 19th century, you're going to get some graphic death, gore, and medical content. Just kind of comes about with these books. Moderate homophobia. It's not like awful, but like people get threatened with coming out, and like it's not like a huge problem in the book, but just like so you're aware of it. Murder, classism, that's definitely going to happen, especially with not having a lot of money. Deal with resurrectionists, yada yada. Minor, we have sexual content, we have kidnapping, and we have death of a parent, as I had mentioned before. But all in all, great book, and I absolutely loved it. I'm so excited to read the next Avery Dunlap that comes out in March. It's on my calendar. I need to read it. The next book was Navigating with You by Jeremy Whitley and illustrated by Cassio Ribeiro. Absolutely loved this. This is a YA graphic novel. That's a queer romance. I never thought I was gonna read a YA because being in my mid-20s now, I don't really want to read about teenagers. However, I absolutely loved this. I rated it 4 stars. It is a POC-led WOW book. Basically, you have Gabby, who is moving from Gabby's moving from Florida from being a surfer. Then you have Nisha, who is a disabled black girl who is moving from New York. They both end up living in North Carolina, going to school for the first time, trying to navigate being the new kids in the class, but also just being themselves and not messing things up and just having a good time. I absolutely loved it. You kind of see that they both get to know each other through this manga series they read together, and they kind of have a competition where they need to find all of this together and see if they can read it together. It's really lovely. It's great disability rep. It's great queer rep for teenagers as well. I absolutely loved it. I would have loved to read a book like this when I was 16 because that's how old the characters are. I really hope that people who are queer and 16 are able to read this book. It was really nice. I loved it. It was emotional, funny, hopeful. It has some hard-hitting points, but it's not super, super bad. I did rate this 4 stars. I think the only thing that would have upped it for me is maybe if it was not a YA book. But I love seeing different representation. I was upset about the boyfriend in there. There was a little bit of a toxic relationship, but he was out of the picture quick. I was a tad triggered because I had a similar experience, but I'm glad that Gabby grew. Love the diverse representation. Very excited to read more by this author, and I'm kind of hoping there's another book in this series, or it's not really a series, but it's a standalone, but I wish there was a series about it because I would love to follow them, like, through their challenges of being girlfriends and having fun. Very diverse, very strong character development. Love the characters. Flaws the characters' main focus. It was very character driven because you're kind of following them throughout their life. But for content warnings, there are some things that come up. For graphic ones, you have ableism, panic attacks, disorders, death of a parent. For your moderate ones, you have biphobia, toxic relationship, and a car accident. And then for your very, very minor ones, you have body shaming and a little bit of homophobia, but it's not too bad. But I really like this book. Got this on Libby as well. Really, 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 really want to read it again. If I can. The The next book is Curvy Girl Summer by Danielle Allen, and this was narrated by Wesley Shaban. I gave this 3.5 stars. This was very body positive, but it was really annoying at times. The most annoying part, slash the annoying part, was the uncle of Aaliyah. Basically, this book is about Aaliyah, pictured on the front cover. She is 29, she works in IT, and she is trying to live her life celebrating her 30th birthday in like 2 months. And then you open up the book, and she like has some people she's hooked up with, but she really hasn't like connected with any of them. She kind of has an ex-boyfriend who hooked up with her, and she's like, yeah, I don't want this anymore, yada yada. And you're kind of like, what is going on here? She ends up deciding, because her uncle has a conversation with her, that because she's plus sized, she must be unhealthy and she must not be attracting people because she is plus size. She's like size 20. And I'm like, that's plus size, but like, you can still be healthy and be 20 as your size. Like, come on, guys. Her uncle is basically like, I'm worried about you. You don't have a man. I want to give you this boat. That's really important to our family. If you get a man by your 30th birthday that she's having a big celebration for, and she basically takes this as a challenge. It's like, okay, I'll do it. Tries to have a date. Guy doesn't show up. Gets on the apps. Meets a bunch of people. Some people fetishize her. Some people are married and lie about it. Some people's wives get involved. Like, it's a whole big thing. A lot of drama. And then she kind of falls in love with this man, and they have a beautiful time together. They share their trauma. They get to know each other better, and it's really great. The only problem I had with the book, besides, like, it's very much people are telling her because of her size, she can fuck off. And it really didn't sit well with me, but I know that's like a whole plot point of the book, and like she never talks about not being confident about being herself, which I really enjoyed. It seems like her and the final guy she gets with, there are all these divides in this. Like, no one, they can't get together, like, at all. Like, it seems like every single blockade that comes up was just a reason for the book to be longer. And, like, I know it wasn't supposed to come off that way, but that's definitely how it came off. And I just, like, don't know, because, like, but yeah, it was just kind of not the best. That's why I got a 3.5. But it was kind of complicated with their flaws. Yes, lovable characters. Yes, diverse characters. Yes, character development. It was kind of a mix of plot and character driven as well. I liked it a lot. I liked the representation. I related to Aaliyah with all of her creepy dates, but it felt like the romance that Ahmad had felt forced. They kept having issues, even though I knew they'd end up together. I felt like there were so many blockades to it all. As I said before, it was just like thing after thing after thing that was happening, and it was just not good. Like, I love the book, don't get me wrong, but like it felt like everything came up because something else needed to come up before they could get together. Content warnings, obviously, because it's about a plus-size person. Unfortunately, in this book, with her uncle, we're gonna get graphic depictions of body shaming, fat phobia, sexual content was very graphic, but I absolutely loved it. Girly got her back breaking. Moderate death, grief, car accident again, minor panic attacks, disorders, a little bit of blood, a little bit of injury detail because of that car accident, but it honestly wasn't that big of a deal. Then we get to the book that I knew I had to read in January. This is Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica, and this was translated by Sarah Moses. This is basically set in the future of what if all animals had a disease that made meat not edible anymore, what would we do? And basically, their answer was, let's breed and slaughter humans and call it special meat, and we'll do it that way. This book was fucking horrifying. The only reason it got a 4 stars because it was so fucking horrifying. This is like a dystopian literary horror, very dark, very tense. You follow this man named Marcos. He's in the business of slaughtering humans. You kind of understand this only happened like a decade or two ago in his timeline, so he remembers when like animals were okay to eat, and his dad owned like a animal factory in like a slaughterhouse. He ended up working in a human slaughterhouse, him being Marcos, because his dad basically like lost his job and a bunch of things happened. And like, oh, I am in a book club with Baby Back Books, or FATS, and it is called oh my god, hold on, I have to look. I think it's a Slow Burn Book Club. I think it is Slow Burn Book Club. But basically, yeah, Slow Burn Club. I wanted to read this because Fats started a book club, and I was like, you know what? This is why I started Fable. Why not read the book? I love Fats so much, love her content so much. Was like, let's get in here and let's do this. Horrifying, 211 pages. I wanted it to be done. I had to take breaks because I could not read this. It was insane. I hated it. That last line, if you understand, please. Oh my god. I see why everyone recommends it, but be prepared for horror, because it is unfortunately very close to modern day, even more so than when I wrote this review literally a week ago. But strong character development, no. Lovable characters, no. Flaws, yes. Kind of diverse, kind of not. Plot or character driven, also a mix, because like, yikes. Content warnings, very graphic cannibalism, very graphic gore, very graphic animal cruelty, little bit child death, a little bit of grape, a little bit of death of the parent, minor infertility, minor trafficking, unfortunately. It was a dark, sad book to end my month on. That's why in February we have a lot more books that I'm ready for. So I also have a little quick list of books that I'm looking to read. One of them is Crescent Moon Tea Room. I have been reading that since January. I really want to finish that this month to kind of wrap it up. It's about 3 women, their parents died, and they run a little tea shop in England, and they kind of use their magic to influence what everyone's doing and how society runs. It's really cool. Next book is a little too familiar. This is like a werewolf romance book. My friend recommended this to me. I've had this for a while as an audiobook. I kind of want to read it to add a little bit of romance into everything. Then we have Memphis. Memphis, if I'm remembering correctly, let me see if I have my notes here. Yes, Memphis is about summer in 1995. Joan, a 10-year-old girl, told from her younger sister about them basically seeking refuge in her mother's ancestral home in Memphis, and then it switches. Oh no, I lost it. And then it kind of switches to like modern day and how like they're getting through everything and how people grow up, and she finds relief in her artwork. And it's a really good book that I've really been wanting to read for a while. I also have Gwen and Art Are Not in Love. I've been wanting to read this one for a while. Also have it as an audiobook. Seems like a queer retelling of like Guinevere and King Arthur, and how they fall in love with each other's friends, I think. And it looks really cool. I really want to read it. It sounds really interesting. You then also have The Color Purple. I have never read The Color Purple, and it has been on my list for literally forever. And I'm simply waiting on a Libby hold on it. And I've been wanting to read it, but it said it's supposed to come out this month, so we'll see if it comes out for me to read on Libby. I really hope it does. I really want to read it so bad. I've heard it's a queer retelling. I just heard that it's such like a powerful and moving book. I'm really excited to read it. Then we have Secret Crush Book Club. This is the 3rd book in a trilogy that I've been reading. I think it's the Peach Blossom series. Bunch of sapphic POC romance books. I've read the first 2. Read the first one in August. Read the second one in September? Or maybe I read the first one. No, the second one was in August. The first one I think was in June or July or May, something like that. Love these books. Had this on audiobook for a while. Again, want to read some like cozy romance books. So, and it's about book club. Like, come on, I'm in a book club. Let's go with it. We also have Like in Love with You. I've already started that. This is basically queer. I explain to people as like queer Bridgerton. But I read the first 2 books in this series as well. I don't know if there's going to be another book after this one, but the first one was a sapphic romance, the second one was a gay romance, and then this one I'm reading right now is also another sapphic romance. It's really fun. It's really like silly, goofy, teehee. So I'm excited to read that. I also have Get Over It, April Evans. I read Dream On, Ramona Riley as it came out. Didn't like that too much. Like, I think I gave it a 3.5 star, but I'm really excited about reading Get Over It, April Evans. I loved Delilah Green Does Not Care, same author. Wanted to just read it and see what the buzz is about. Just came out also on the 3rd, so came out a few days ago. Would love to read it this month. We then have Semi Well Adjusted Despite Everything. This is Alison Stoner's book. This is Libby came up, couldn't suspend it. Really excited to read it. I did watch Allison in Camp Rock. I think Allison was also in So Random and Sunny with a Chance, if I'm correct. So kind of want to see like their take on growing up in like as an actor, as a child, and in the industry and everything like that. I also have I, Medusa, which is another book that I really wanted to read. This one is basically about Medea spent her whole life being a footnote in someone else's story, and it's kind of like a retelling of the Medusa story. Really want to read it. Sounds really freaking cool. I also had another Libby hold that came up, 107 Days, Kamala Harris's story about how she ran for president. I really wanted to read it. It came up last year, but I had to resubmit my hold because I didn't have time, unfortunately, to read it at the time that I wanted, but I feel like that'd be a really good way to start off my year, so I really want to try to read it. I also have Educated. Educated, if I'm thinking correctly, is about, yeah, the mountains of Idaho, basically, like, black people being able to be educated in Idaho and how they can travel farther, with being educated. And let me see. What was this about? Yeah. Basically, her family was isolated from mainstream society. There's no way to ensure that they received an education. And when one of her older brothers becomes violent, another older brother got himself into college. She decided to kind of try a new life and go to get educated. And her quest for knowledge transformed, taking her over oceans and continents to Harvard and Cambridge University. And then she wonders, like, has she lost connection with how she was raised? And I've been wanting to read like more diverse books about like how other people get educated, how other people live, as I was talking about before, so I'm really excited to read it. I also have Only for the Weak, another romance book where apparently someone gets their back broken, and I'm all for that. So I'm really excited to read that as well. And then my very last book is The Prophets. This is about 2 black men on a plantation in the South. They end up falling in love, and they have to kind of survive going through that. This is also for Bats is book club. If you guys want to join, please do. Absolutely love Fats. Love everyone in there. We kind of bonded over reading Tender as the Flesh, and we are just going for it. But, oh my god, this video is long as hell. But thank you for sitting through this. I really appreciate it. If you're still here, please tell me the books that you are ready to read in February, what you got planned on your TBR. What did you read in January? What did you love? I will hopefully be back with another wrap-up video at the end of February, beginning of March, most likely beginning of March, and I will see you guys next time. I love you all so much. Stay reading, stay having fun, and I will see you guys later. Bye!